to calculate the date of birth using Access is pretty straightforward. In this example, what I've done is created a simple Microsoft Access table. And in this table, I have a first name and a date of birth, standard naming format. What I'm going to do is create a new query, and based off of this contacts table, and I'm going to just add the first name and date of birth to the query by example grid. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use the builder, the expression builder, to create an expression to actually calculate the date of birth. What I'll do is right click on the drop down arrow and choose build, and that shows me all of my objects and functions that are available to me. And we're going to look in our functions and our built-in functions, and we're going to look under the date and time, and there is our date_diff function, and with all of the arguments available. Now, for a more complete listing of what all of these arguments are, which ones are optional, you can just simply press on the help button, and that will bring up Access Help that will show you here are all the things that you need to know about this function, how they work, and most importantly is that the settings that we're looking for. What we're going to do is we want to calculate the year within our date differential, meaning how many years have passed between our first date and our last date. I'm going to close this and continue entering my information. So the first thing we want to enter is the interval. And so for the interval, by reading the description of the date_diff function, we know it's years, and that's how we would indicate years. And so what is the first date? And the first date is the date of birth in our table. So I click here on our what tables we're looking at, and there's our contacts table, and I want to use the date of birth. If I double click on that, it adds the date of birth field to our expression. And then for the date too, which is how do I calculate the date that I want to use to calculate the age from? So it could be the first year, the day of a certain year, could be the first day of a fiscal year, but most likely most people want to know how old is the person right now. And what we're going to use is the built-in function actually titled now. So I'll just type that in, now. I'll use the parentheses, and that tells Access that now is actually a built-in function. And when we looked at when we used help, we would have read on date_diff that first week days and first weeks are optional arguments. So I'm going to just simply delete those optional arguments and click OK. What you can see down in the QBE grid is our expression that we've just created. Now notice that it's named expression 1, and I don't want it to be named that, so I will backspace over expression 1, and I'll call that age. Our query is now complete. We can run it. When we run it, you see there is the age calculated by how many years have passed between today, which is now, and the date of birth. Now if we had typed in weeks, it would have said how many weeks have passed since this week, as the time I'm doing this, and this date. If we had typed in days, it would have given you how many days have passed between today's date and this date. So it's a very flexible option. So if I come back here and change years to days, rerun my query, that's how many days have passed between today, which is October 18th, 2009, and these dates of birth. Go back and change that back to years, and there you go, we're back to years. So very straightforward. The date_diff function can be used in either queries, and it can also be used in reports. So if you're thinking of having a field on a printout report that says here is the person's date as of a certain day, or how old they will be as of a certain day. You can use dateDiff as well. Although for a report, you most likely would have used the dateDiff function in a query that's driving the report. If you have any questions, feel free to send me an email, Stefan@techserveco.com.